The morning was quiet, but something felt different in the air. Sunlight touched the high windows of the royal palace, and the golden curtains danced slowly in the breeze. The air inside was warm, soft, and filled with the smell of fresh flowers. Hundreds of white and yellow roses were placed along the red carpet. Every corner of the grand hall looked bright and full of life. It was not just a normal day. It was a very special day. People were arriving one by one. Some wore simple suits, others wore beautiful dresses, but everyone walked with respect and wonder in their eyes. They were not kings or queens. They were teachers, nurses, soldiers, parents, and even children. They had come from many places, small villages, big cities, and quiet towns. Each person had a reason to be there, each had a story. It was a day of thanks, a day of honor. The royal family had invited them to the palace. But nobody knew exactly what was going to happen. They were told it would be a moment of great meaning, nothing more. The hall was silent, yet full of quiet energy. The red carpet waited like a long river of history. Beautiful candles burned gently near the walls. The guests looked around, unsure of where to sit or what to say. Many of them had never been inside a palace before. In one corner, a young boy sat in a wheelchair. His mother held his hand tightly. Across the room, an old war veteran stood tall, wearing his medals on his chest, though his hands were shaking. Near the front, a nurse looked at the ceiling and whispered, "I never thought I'd be here." Then, suddenly, the music began. A soft piano melody filled the air. It was gentle but strong. The crowd turned toward the large royal doors at the end of the hall. Guards in red uniforms stood straight, waiting. Then, without a sound, the doors opened. Prince William and Princess Kate entered slowly, hand in hand. They didn't walk fast. They didn't wave like celebrities. They walked with grace, with peace, with calm hearts. There were no big smiles, only soft ones. It's a kind of smile that says, "I see you. I'm glad you're here." As they walked, something strange began to happen. People didn't cheer or shout. They became completely silent. Not because they were told to, but because they felt something. It was not fear. It was not formality. It was feeling. The kind of feeling that makes your throat tight and your chest warm. Some people blinked hard to stop their tears. Others simply stood still, their hands to their hearts. Prince William stopped first. He kneeled down beside the boy in the wheelchair and gently touched his arm. The boy looked up and smiled. His mother began to cry quietly. Princess Kate saw an old woman sitting near the back. She walked over and held her hand for a moment. The woman whispered, "I lost my husband last year. He loved you both." Kate squeezed her hand and whispered back, "He's with us today." Nobody had expected this. The royal couple wasn't just walking past. They were stopping. They were listening. They were seeing people, not as a crowd, but one by one. The feeling in the palace changed. It became personal. It became soft. It became something real. As they walked toward the front of the room, more people reached out, not for photos, not for fame, but for a moment. A simple moment. A handshake. A smile. A word. Prince William and Kate gave them that. It was not the royal clothes. It was not the music or the gold walls. It was the way they looked into people's eyes. It was the way they made everyone feel important. Even the guards, trained to stay still, blinked with emotion. By the time the royal couple reached the stage, the palace had changed. It no longer felt like a place for kings and queens. It felt like a place for hearts. And yet, no one still knew what the couple would say. No one knew what would happen next. But deep inside, everyone felt it. This was not just an event. It was going to be a moment they would never forget. The palace hall was now quiet. Prince William stood on the stage with Princess Kate beside him. Their faces were calm but full of emotion. The air felt heavy, not with fear, but with deep respect. People leaned forward slightly, not wanting to miss a single word. They didn't know what he would say, but their hearts were open, waiting. William looked at the crowd for a long moment before he began to speak. He didn't speak like a prince. He spoke like a man, like a son, a father, and a human being. The voice was gentle, not loud. Didn't fill the room with power, but it filled it with warmth. "Thank you all for being here," he said slowly. "Today is not about royalty. It's about people. It's about you." He paused. "What?" Some people blinked fast. Others looked down, already feeling something inside. William continued. "I want to tell you a small story. It's not about a crown or a castle. It's about someone very close to my heart, my mother." At that moment, you could feel the change. In the room, everyone knew who he meant. Princess Diana, the woman loved by millions. The woman the world lost too soon. William looked down for a second, then back up. "She always used to say," he said softly, "it's not how many people love you that matters. It's how many people you make feel loved." I never forgot. Those words, a deep silence filled the palace. You could almost hear people breathing. "My mother believed in kindness," he continued. "She believed in sitting with someone who was lonely. She believed in holding hands and smiling at strangers. That was her way, and I try every day to carry that forward." He turned to look at Kate for a moment, and she nodded with a gentle smile. "Today," William said, "you are here because you made someone's life better. Maybe you helped a child. Maybe you saved a life. Maybe you stayed strong when the world felt too heavy. That's why you're here. That's why this moment belongs to you." Some people were already wiping their eyes. A woman near the front held her mouth with her hand. A young man hugged his little sister close. The feeling inside the palace was like a soft wave moving through every person, touching every heart. Then Princess Kate stepped forward. She stood tall, but her eyes showed deep emotion. She looked at the crowd, then spoke slowly. "I want to speak about quiet heroes," she said. "The ones who don't ask for thanks. The ones who just do what's right." Her voice was calm. Every word carried feeling. "I once met a mother who walked 10 miles every day just to take her daughter to school. She had no car, no money, but she never stopped. I asked her why she did it. She said, because my daughter's future is worth it. That mother is a hero." Kate smiled gently. "Today, in this room, I see many heroes," she said. "Not because you wear uniforms or have medals, but because you love, care, and give every single day." People in the crowd were no longer shy with their tears. Many were crying quietly now, not because of sadness, but because they felt seen, they felt understood. Kate looked around the room with care in her eyes. "I want you to remember this," she said. "Your small acts of love, they matter. Even if no one sees them, even if no one claps for youth, they still matter." Stepped back, and for a moment there was silence again. But it was not empty silence. It was full. It was full of emotion, memory, and deep human connection. Then, soft sound began to play. Music. A slow, emotional song. The lights dimmed slightly, and a large screen behind the royal couple lit up. It showed short video clips, but not of kings or queens. The videos showed people, ordinary people, doing beautiful things. A nurse holding the hand of a crying child. Teacher giving his jacket to a cold student. A man carrying his neighbor through floodwaters. A girl feeding stray dogs on the street. One by one, these moments played on the screen. No voices, just music, just feeling. People watched with full hearts. Some simply cried in silence, and then, near the end, something happened that nobody expected. A short clip showed Prince William in a small hospital room. He was holding hands with a young boy in bed, smiling gently. The boy had no hair and looked weak. But he smiled too. The video paused there. Just the image of that moment. 2 hands holding, 2 smiles meeting. The music stopped. The screen went dark, but the feeling in the palace remained. Strong, gentle, deep. People looked at William and Kate with new eyes, not just as royals, but as people who truly understood pain, love, and hope. And in that quiet moment, it was clear something beautiful had just begun. The screen had gone dark, but the emotions in the room were still shining. No one spoke for a few seconds. It felt like the whole palace was holding its breath. After the video ended, People sat quietly, their faces full of emotion. Some were still wiping their tears. Others simply looked down, their hands held tightly in their laps. It was not the kind of silence that felt awkward. It was a beautiful silence. A silence full of love, respect, and connection. Prince William stepped forward again. He didn't speak right away. He looked at the crowd, at the mothers, fathers, young children, old veterans, nurses, teachers, and quiet heroes from all over the country. "I want to say something from my heart," he said gently. "Many of you have gone through pain. You've lost someone. You fought battles the world never saw. But you're still here. You're still standing. And that is strength." A small sound came from the back of the hall. A young woman began crying softly. She wasn't the only one. Around her, others wiped their faces with tissues or sleeves. But no one was embarrassed. "Because no one was alone," William continued. "When I met that little boy in the hospital, I didn't know what to say. I just sat there and listened. He told me he wasn't scared. Said even if I don't make it, I want to be remembered. As someone who smiled." He paused. His voice shook a little. "I will never forget that boy. And I know his smile lives on in all of you." Beside him, Kate gently placed her hand on his arm. She was smiling, but her eyes were full of tears, too. You could see how much this moment meant to both of them. Then something beautiful happened. William and Kate walked down from the stage and into the crowd again. But this time, they weren't just guests of honor. They were a part of the family. A big family full of stories, love, and emotion. They moved slowly through the room. One step at a time, an old man with silver hair stood up as William approached. He had a walking stick in one hand and a photo in the other. Said, "This is my son. He died saving lives in a fire. Thank you for seeing people like him." William took the photo and held it gently. "He's a hero," he said softly. "And so are you." Not far away, Kate knelt beside a teenage girl holding a small framed drawing. The girl whispered, "I drew this for my mother. She passed away last year. She was a nurse." Kate looked at the drawing, a heart surrounded by tiny stars. "She would be proud of you," Kate whispered. "And this drawing is beautiful, just like her love." These were not planned moments. There were no cameras rushing in, no news flashes. These were simple, human moments, real feelings, real hearts. The people in the palace were no longer strangers. They were connected by pain, by courage, and by kindness. For every tear that fell, there was also a smile. For every sad memory, there was also hope. Then, near the front, a little boy stood on his toes to be seen. He raised his hand. Kate smiled and walked to him. "Sweetheart?" The boy asked. "Are you a queen?" Kate laughed softly and bent down. "Not yet," she said kindly. "But more important than being a queen, I try to be kind." Crowd smiled. Even the guards near the doors, standing still and quiet, looked moved. One of them blinked quickly, holding back his own tears. As the royal couple slowly made their way back to the stage, the mood in the palace had changed again. It was no longer just a royal event. It was a place of healing. People weren't clapping loudly. They were placing hands on shoulders, giving hugs, whispering thank yous to each other. One woman, wiping her eyes, said to her husband, "I feel like my heart has opened." Another man whispered to his daughter, "I've never felt something like this in my life." By the time William and Kate returned to the front, the palace no longer felt big and distant. It felt close. It felt warm. It felt like home, and still. The moment wasn't over, because something even more touching was yet to come. The palace was silent, but the silence was powerful. After the video ended, no one moved, no one spoke. People looked at the dark screen, then at Prince William and Princess Kate. The emotions inside the room were too big for words. Some were still crying. Others were simply holding on to the moment. It was as if time had stopped. Then, slowly, William stepped forward again. His face looked soft, his eyes shining. He looked at the crowd, not as a prince, but as someone who truly cared. "Know many of you are holding something inside," he said quietly. a memory, a loss, a name, a face you miss. He took a deep breath and added, "We all carry those things. We all walk with pain, even when we smile. But today I want you to remember this kindness heals. Even a little kindness can light up the darkest place." A woman in the second row nodded slowly. She had lost her husband last year in a house fire. She hadn't spoken about it much, but now her tears were falling freely. For the first time, she felt like someone understood. Princess Kate stood beside her husband. She looked out over the room and said, "We may live in a palace, but this moment belongs to you." Her words were soft, but they touched every person there. Then something unexpected happened. The royal couple walked down from the stage right into the crowd again. But this time, they weren't just shaking hands. They were hugging people. Kate hugged the mother of the boy in the wheelchair. William knelt down again and gave the young boy a soft toy. The boy smiled wide and held it to his chest. A nurse walked up to Kate and whispered, "My patients won't believe this happened." Kate took her hand and said, "Tell them they are the true heroes." A teacher who had come alone stood in the back with tears in his eyes. William walked over to him and said, "Thank you for shaping young minds." The teacher whispered, "I lost my confidence this year." William looked him in the eye and said, "Then let today remind you you matter." Every step they took was filled with meaning. Which had once felt like a place of gold and rules, now felt like a place of love. People weren't just watching royalty. They were feeling humanity. Someone started clapping, then another, and another. But it wasn't loud. It wasn't wild. It was soft, gentle, like the kind of clap that comes from the heart. The royal couple stood together in the middle of the hall. William raised his hand, not to wave but to thank. His eyes were wet. Kate's hand rested on her heart. There were no more speeches, no more music. Just the sound of quiet claps, soft cries, and full hearts. Then, slowly, they began to walk toward the door. Not rushed, not grand, just quiet steps. Hand in hand. As they walked out of the palace hall, the doors gently closed behind them, but the feeling stayed. The guests stood there, not ready to leave. Some hugged each other, some whispered prayers. Some simply looked at the flowers and candles around them. Something had changed inside them. One young girl, maybe 8 years old, turned to her father and said, "Papa, I want to be kind like them." He nodded, holding back his own tears, and whispered, "Me too." Outside the palace, the sun was setting. The sky had turned soft orange, with streaks of pink. Birds flew across the horizon. It was peaceful, beautiful, just like the moment they had witnessed. Later, many guests would try to explain it. Some said it felt like healing. Others said it felt like hope. But no one could fully describe it, because what happened that day inside the palace was more than a royal event. It was a reminder that even in grand rooms, it's simple love that matters. That even those who wear crowns have hearts that feel, and that when we choose kindness, true honest kindness, we leave behind something powerful. Not gold, not fame, but something far greater. A beautiful moment that stays forever.